So just a quick disclaimer, everyone, I am not an attorney and I am not a health practitioner, but I do enjoy these classes. I'm a consultant and I have been doing safety since 2011, but that's when I opened my consulting firm, really. Prior to that, I was working in connection with a lot of business owners and learning about the safety issues, etc. And then I went to my OTI, which is the OSHA Training Institute, through the University of San Diego Extension, the continuing education branch. And I loved it because I got to be an authorized OSHA trainer, which means I am able to teach courses like the 10-hour, the 30-hour, and help out companies and organizations like yours. So there it is. There's a disclaimer, and the session is being recorded because we want to continue to spread the message. And when people look up some of the things that we're talking about, they are able to hear some of the things that we've learned throughout the year, and in practical terms, more than anything. You all of you know that that's kind of like my motto is, what have I seen out there in the field that is still causing trouble? And sometimes I throw my hands up. I can't believe this hasn't changed, etc. But I know it takes, that changing culture, and it takes just repetition. And we're adults, so we learn by doing, and that hands-on training is so important. So today I'm going to do a review of what 2023 taught me. So it's not a review of what is not the topmost cited, and we'll do that probably in January. Or let us know what kind of topics you want to hear or you want to visit. Some of them, if you find that some of the topics that you've suggested, we haven't put them out, it could be because some other trainer is going to do it because that's their scope, or it could be because it's not my expertise. So it's impossible to know it all in this very extensive field of safety. But today, like I said, I'm going to do that, review some of these things that I learned all throughout 2023 for your benefit. Truly, is what in practical terms, how can we improve the things that I've seen out there when I visit your sites? And then I want to make sure we mention at least 2 tips for safety of workers during this holiday season. There's a quick video by OSHA that I will play, and then I'll tell you some of the tidbits that I've learned that are super important. And then discussing a little bit of the difference between, what's going on with the flu season and COVID-19. As I'm sick with the flu, it's crazy. But yeah, the other thing is, I think I did promise you guys to talk a little bit about planning for 2024 and putting together a calendar for training and just kind of looking at how other companies are doing it and what you should consider changing this 2024. All right, cool. So starting with these things and some of the review or the things that I look back and I think we could improve some of these things. I have the 6 points, right? The safety during the holidays, because this is what's happening right now. We still have all of the December holidays and then New Year's, although Thanksgiving already passed. And then manufacturer stone workers, which in July or August, we did a training that extensively dealt with some of the updates because of the exposure to silica dust and how a lot of these workers are developing acute silicosis or accelerated silicosis, and they're dying. And a lot of them are going misdiagnosed. And it's a true problem right now. And we need to do more outreach, and we need to do more training. And we truly need, if we are involved in this type of industry, we need to do more research, because it's really in depth what we need to look at. What's out there from OSHA and OSHA is still not the newest and latest. And I have to tell you that it's just not, because right now the research is being done. And right now the specialists, the people, the scientists are the ones that are putting together the information that tell us, are we protecting these workers enough? And the answer is no. So that was a topic that was close to my heart this 2023. And that heat illness is always there, as you know. But this year we have a new thing, because we have the indoor illness, heat illness prevention regulation. And it will come out sometime in 2024. So I really need you to be ready for this. And then the Cal VPP program, the voluntary compliance program, I think is the golden compliance program in all California. And it is. And so I look back to 2023 and I think, why don't we have more companies, more organizations coming on board And even if it's not the full-blown VVP program, at least use the resources, because it's a very lengthy process to be actually approved and to be certified under Cal OSHA standards for the VPP program, because they will consider you a company that does the utmost and the best effort in safety for their workers. And you're exempt from inspections from Cal OSHA, etc. So that one is a very, very important one that you should look into. Every single one of you on this call should look into the Cal VPP and what are the requirements and what is it really about. It's not that simple. There's webinars and information that are lengthy. So we'll talk more about it. The new research for back safety and safe lifting. Oh my goodness, guys. This one, for ages, right? We know that back injury prevention is huge. It's just huge. It's one of the most prevalent issues at any organization. I don't care if you're in healthcare or you work at a lab or you work in manufacturing or you work at a warehouse and distribution center. This is the topic that is bothering us all. It's on everyone's OSHA's logs, and yet the latest research and the latest and newest information about back injury prevention is not being used at our workplaces. And that, when I look back to 2023, I say, my goodness, how can we? And it's a slow process, I have to tell you, because in spite of me showing literature and bringing research, some of the people that I talk to and some of the workers that I discuss things with still have trouble with some of the issues that I'll talk about, such as what do you do outside of work for exercise and how that actually plays into your back health. Okay, and then COVID-19, the flu season, which is now December through February. And what are some of the things that OSHA has to say about the flu? Because as you know, with COVID-19, we do have a temporary standard that is actually in place till February 2025, I believe. So let's watch this quick video just to get us started. Let's see. I am sure I put... Oh, goodness gracious. I did not put the video. I did not put the video. It's a great video. Hold on. Okay. Chrome. So I think you're all looking at my screen now, and now you are looking at the video. And Lindsay, just let me know that for sure I have the video playing. For some reason, it's getting to be quite slow. I'm not sure. Okay, here we go. If it doesn't play, it doesn't play, and I'll just talk about the things that I've learned. This video has to do with temporary workers and seasonal workers. And Cal OSHA is more strict than federal OSHA, which is the video we're going to play. Federal OSHA is not as stringent, as you know, and we've said it in many other classes, right? Where we know, for example, in California, we have the temporary worker policies and procedure document produced by Cal OSHA. There we go. Can everyone hear it?
I think it has audio. I'm not hearing anything.
Can you see it?
We can see it, and we can see the captions, but no sound.
No wording, so just read the caption.
And it's very choppy, so it's hard to watch.
I'll actually put the link in the chat. But
I'll send the link to, if you send that over, I'll send the link out to everyone.
Yeah, that's a because it's an actual 1 minute video, and
I'll send
there's like
that out.
tips, and one of them has to do with, let me just put this back up. It's actually basically what I have. I have 3 only, but they have more. And this picture is from one of my inspections last week. And it has to do, that guy standing holding the cart is actually a temporary worker. So he was assigned to this job site because the company is working with a temporary agency. So it has to do with this. But basically, the main thing in that video by OSHA, which I sent you guys a link, is that you must consider these workers as brand new. This is interesting. As I was walking this, and this is a construction site, but as I was walking this construction site, the superintendent, who is the one that conducted the inspection with me, and the field operations field manager. So they were both walking with me and telling me what they were doing. And these guys are doing installation on residential buildings of large, heavy windows. This one on the screen is a 200-pound window. And I ask always, how many workers you have on the site, how many per crew, and how many temp workers. And they tell me there's 2 temp workers working with this crew. And I said, okay. And I said, did you take the time to do a training for safe lifting specific to those windows that they're doing? And they said, well, they come, and this is the response I always get. They always send them to us with training. So they have had safe lifting training. And I said, I know, but did you do it in regards to the windows, the types of windows, how to do the coordinated lifts according to your policies? They're like, well, no, because that's the reason why we work with the temp agency, because they do the training. The reasoning seems good. Don't you agree? It's good reasoning. It's like, oh, okay, no problem. No, there is the problem. You have to know that California requires, and they will, look at it on a independent case basis. They'll look at each case, but they will review your contracts with the temp agency. And one of the things that is very, very important that you start doing is to train them. And you have to train them not just in the task that they're going to do, but recognizing the hazards. So recognizing hazards, and this is my tip for you. Take a few pictures of the things that you consider to be hazardous when they do a task that pertains to jobs like this one, where you're going to hire temp workers. For example, this company uses suction cups for the larger, heavier windows. The suction cups have to be in certain condition, because if you don't inspect them prior to use, the window could slip and fall. And because this is a construction site, it could actually fall through the openings where the scaffold, because they take it out from towards the scaffold and into the hole for the actual wall where they go. And they've had some near misses where the windows can fall, and that's because of the suction cup. So what am I trying to say here? Take pictures and teach these workers, seasonal workers or temporary workers, to recognize the hazards. So since it's hard to keep tabs on all of them, just develop something in pictures, just because they're on site and it's field and you don't have a computer, unless you already have something that is a smart device where you can actually go on and show them the pictures on the device. But if not, just have one page with pictures where you say, this is what you look for. They shouldn't look like this. Develop. It's specific to what they do, and it'll prove to OSHA that you're doing your due diligence, because that's something that they will ask of you if anyone gets hurt. Okay. And back injuries are so common. Why not make sure that you do your due diligence? And OSHA requires it. So it must be specific to the task that they do. And I just told you why. And the most important part is document that training. So imagine if you have that sheet with pictures of the suction cups, and then the next one of the carts and the kinds of windows. And then you just have the foreman there on site going over each picture. And you have the new worker or the 3 new workers you're talking to who are going to work with your crew sign that they received the information. Remember that it's super important to train them in a language that they understand. Okay. So those are some of the things. And in the video, you're going to see a couple of other tips that I considered very, very important. One of those was visibility clothing for those in warehousing and center and distribution centers. And I really don't know how many times I have visited manufacturing and warehousing, because most of the time manufacturing always has a warehouse associated with their operations, if not all of the time. And employees in the warehouse do not wear high visibility clothing, and they must. So that's one of the ones included in the video that I showed you. All right. So that's for that. Make sure that if you're having more workers or you're hiring temporary workers, seasonal workers, you keep this in mind and be compliant with OSHA by documenting your training, and make your job easier, man. Take pictures of the specific tasks they're going to do with your crew and let it happen. It will be beautiful. Okay, so now, oh yes, so this one, for those of you that didn't hear our August training, in 2019, there was a report of 18 workers with accelerated silicosis here in the United States, and 2 of those die working here in California. So they kind of sounded the alarm. And right now there's a doctor, a female doctor out of is it Mount Sinai or Cedar Sinai, and she focused and actually brought the awareness, because in LA you have a lot of these manufactured stone sites. And she brought the awareness as to, if you have any symptoms, just come to me, because a lot of these workers, when they have respiratory symptoms, they go to their family doctor. And most of the time, you have just a cough, or it goes misdiagnosed, pneumonia, and it goes misdiagnosed, right? And so she said, because I've been dealing with this for a while, I'm going to go ahead and run the appropriate tests, which goes beyond just the typical X-ray, which is the only one mandated by the regulation. And I discussed this in my training in August, where the typical X-ray is not going to detect this in a timely manner. So a lot of issues here. Because we have a lot of these workers not going to the right doctor, the right specialist, we are going to have a lot of them who get ill and die, and they're not part of the numbers that we're seeing. They started in Australia, I believe. They are the ones that sounded the alarm prior to the United States coming on board and saying, hey, we need to put an emergency standard here. Because out of 700 workers in the manufactured stone sites, 98 had already been reported with accelerated silicosis. So it has no cure. And the actual any respiratory illnesses, they will be more susceptible to have a silicosis or cancer. And there's many things that Cal OSHA wants us to do now. The issue here that I don't see in any of the literature out, such as the hazard alert pamphlet, etc., is that workers don't really know that there is no current technology that will truly eliminate the danger of coming down with silicosis when working with manufactured stone. And if you heard my training last time, you remember that we talked about the difference between the levels of silica dust, crystalline silica dust, in natural stone versus manufactured stone, because manufactured stone is an actual resin that contains much higher amounts of the silica dust, the crystalline silica dust. So the permissible exposure level, PEL, is at 50 micrograms per cubic meter. And there's nothing, no matter how much, because right now we do have technology where if you use wet methods with dust extraction methods, and you cut, not dry, but wet at all times, and you do it according to manufacturer's instructions, that the actual exposure goes really, really low. But for manufactured stone, we have not been able to bring it below the 50 micrograms per meter. And that is something that will take time to develop. Like I said, there's a lot of people that are already working on developing better technology. But in the meantime, it's not the same issue, by the way, with the natural stone, because with natural stone, because it has less content of crystalline silica, you are able to bring it down if you cut wet and if you use the actual exhaust methods as per manufacturer's instructions. And also there's no, at the shops, the prohibition of dry sweeping, etc. So there's a lot of controls that you can put in place to prevent it or to slow it down. But with manufactured stone, the one that is not natural stone, it's truly, truly a risky business. So take a look at the updates. The regulation number is Title 8, Section 5204. And if you are interested in more, you can also print some of these hazard alerts that OSHA has put out. And they're very nice and explanatory. But like I said, I find that they haven't really stressed the actual danger of how and I'm just talking about the literature because there's a lot of information. They did have a actual meeting in July with one of the workers who has accelerated silicosis present at the meeting. And a lot of these things came out. So if you look deep enough, you will find information you're looking for. But some of these hazard alert one-page pamphlets do not cover everything that we need to cover. All right. So we talked about that. And then we have the illness prevention for indoor places of employment. And where do we have this occurring the most? Warehousing, manufacturing, distribution centers, foundries, right? So the key is the 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So for outdoor is 80. So once you get to 80, you know that you have to implement the requirements for water, shade, and rest. But when you have the actual indoor heat coming 82 degrees or more, you have to do certain things. And it's very similar to the outdoor heat illness prevention, the training requirements, the actual emergency, what to do if someone is overcome by heat, and training workers and what to do in emergency procedures. There's a couple of challenges there, especially for those of you with indoor heat of 87 degrees or more. So I put the link there because I need you to know that the indoor comment period just ended. So that's interesting. Hold on a second, okay? So the actual, I'll try it. It ended November 28th. I know my voice is softer now. I just don't want to start coughing. So yes, for those of you that got a hold of this and that submitted your comments, we appreciate it. The comment period for places of employment with issues of indoor heat illness started November 9th, 2023 and ended November 28th, 2023. And I'm not sure you're seeing my screen. It's all right. I will share it with you. It's right there. So just make sure, and we can put this link also in the chat so you guys can share it and study it, especially if you have issues of indoor heat. We do not have a date for this to be in place, but early 2024 sounds about right. That's the notice of informative digest. Section 3396. And then you also have the actual proposed regulation. It's a good document. It's good reading. It's homework for you guys. But like I said, and I think we did cover this in our heat illness prevention class. I always make sure I go over some of the issues, but it's very similar to the outdoor. It's just going to be different when it hits 87 degrees or more, which by the way is easy for a lot of you with warehouses where you keep all the loading and unloading areas with the doors open. So some of you already have some good engineering controls in place, such as very large fans, and that's very good. That's very good because it allows you guys to bring that temperature a couple of degrees lower. All right. So some of the challenges there is to taking the measurements and ensuring that you bring that to 82 degrees or less. If not, because, and why do I say the challenges? Because you're mandated to look into engineering controls, such as installing air conditioning. I think that's going to be an expense for some of you. But hey, if you were already thinking about it, I'm glad. Remember, a lot of the deaths in warehousing and distribution centers occurs because of heat and because of being caught between. That's why the high visibility vests are so important. A lot of you have uniforms that mix with the environment. They just blend with the environment. And when someone is walking in the warehouse and you have a Tourette truck driver that doesn't see him or her, they're going to be smooshed against your, how do you call it? All of your stacking in your areas where you are storing all of your products. Anyways, very good. Let's get back to my actual. So there is a link, okay, for you guys to review if you have that issue. And then we get into the Cal VPP, which I wanted to briefly talk to you guys about. I am big on promoting them. And this is part of the consultation services. Consultation for Cal OSHA it's a wonderful part of Cal OSHA. I have seen time and time again how they help companies, how they help all of us with questions, because you may have questions, and they'll just answer it for you. You can just call, and anonymously they will answer a question in regards to how to do something better, how to prevent this, how to install fault protection if you can't do it in a certain way. They're really nice. But the California VPP program, and it just kind of goes into, is the highest and therefore the most difficult to achieve. Why? They're very strict. And my favorite resource is their checklist. So let me take you to their checklist. Their checklist, they send it to you, or they have it open for anyone to take a look at. It's an actual Excel document. And I think I did review this one with you guys at some point during 2023, some of the webinars. But the beauty of this checklist is that it's out there for all of you to take a look at. And it's out there for you to see what California OSHA is looking for you, for companies and organizations to do in order to keep people safe and to make it practical, not just in paper, but to actually make it happen. So it goes into that this checklist is something that you will submit with your application form. And you're going to request a mentor. And a mentor is somebody that Cal OSHA says, listen, this guy knows everything about the VPP program, and he's going to be your mentor. He's going to guide you through the process. Mind you, he's not your health and safety consultant. So he's not going to solve any of the problems that you already have, right? You can use your own health and safety department to do that. Or you can actually hire someone, a consultant like me, which I am actually doing and working in partnership with an employer at this time to help them get there. But just use it. For heaven's sakes, use it. Look at this. So the first part is about, the general information about your company. Then they incline themselves to listen closely to applicants that are below injury illness rates that are below national industry averages, right? And so if for the past years you have these numbers a little bit above the actual industry averages, they ask you, what is your plan to bring those down? How are you doing to what is it that you have been planning? And then you have to actually explain, so this is where my injuries are at. This is what we're planning. This is new. We have a new policy for this or that. So like I said, it's very detailed, but it's wonderful management. So now they go into, how do you really make this happen? And so just for fun, take a look at this checklist and you'll see that it is everything that we've been talking about for the whole 2023, 2022, 2021. Management responsibilities for implementation of the health and safety programs and Cal VPP elements have been defined and communicated, are defined and communicated. What does that mean? It means that if you have all team meetings, like where you do a plant meeting, or if you're doing like a monthly or quarterly meetings with your departments, that you distribute information. And one of those is, hey, we want to be certified by Cal OSHA as a VPP member. We want to make sure that we get their seal of approval, that we are doing everything we can to keep you guys safe. For that reason, these are the elements, and we're going to start a process that is lengthy and requires all of this. So you actually have to explain to them, which is interesting to me because it's a little bit like when you plan to do something and you don't tell anyone, and then if it doesn't happen, it's okay. But here, if you're serious about this, you actually have to communicate to all of your employees that you're going to do it and you're committed to doing this. And so Imagine, this is so good because now you are bound to. You're like, okay. And you tell them from the beginning, you know, no one has achieved this Cal VPP status in less than 6 months. Listen to this. No one has achieved this Cal OSHA VPP status in less than 6 months. The average is 2 years or more. 2 years. So it's a lengthy process, but in the process, you're going to learn enormous amounts, and you're going to be so happy that your company is going slowly towards, what are these webinars all about? Cal OSHA compliance. And that is what I love. Okay, so as you keep looking down into this checklist, it goes into resources. Do you have adequate resources to ensure workplace safety? And there's staffing and budget. By the way, that video from Federal OSHA in the beginning talked about having enough staff, to plan on having enough staff, and to have a flexible policy. What does that mean? Well, people, you know, it's flu season. So you have to have a plan on how you're going to staff your company in a way that it doesn't cause stress, and people are not overrun and overwhelmed, and you're not assigning more tasks that what they can complete, because you all know that when people are rushed, people get hurt. So that's part of seasonal work, holiday tips, okay? And it's here, staffing, budget. So it makes all sense, you know, it all comes together. Is top management involved in worker safety and health concerns at the site? How? Is top management visible and accessible? And then you have to say how. Set examples of safe and healthful behavior. So this is a very fun checklist to check out. Contractor program. Is there an active contract worker safety and health program that describes the following: contract selection and criteria, monitoring on-site contractor activities to verify compliance? So if you have an active contract worker safety and health program, take a look at the checklist and look at what they want to see. For example, on this one, your selection criteria should include Department of Occupational Safety and Health compliance history. That means that you checked with Cal OSHA that they haven't had violations and inspections where they have serious injuries or illnesses in the past. It doesn't tell you how many years, but it's a clear, nice history with OSHA. Effective implementation and maintenance of your injury and illness prevention program, so their IIPP and their injury and illness laws, and their current XMOD rates and efforts that are below 1.25, right? So I want to see how many of you can actually raise your hand, because you know your organization has rates of injury that are below 125, because Cal OSHA will target those companies, no matter the type of industry, with an XMOD higher than 1.25. Okay, so enough of this, because I just can't talk enough about the importance of getting on board with VPP. And like I said, if you are not interested, you're kind of not sold on the idea of calling Cal OSHA and being a VPP program site with VPP status, you're not interested. You're thinking, oh, that's crazy. Why would I call Cal OSHA and have them on my floor taking a look at what's going on, talking to my workers? If that's not you, at least use what they already have out there. And so let me see if I put the link. I don't know if I put the link with all the resources, but I will put it right now. How about that? And you can go ahead and check out a lot of their stuff right there. Okay. So all of you are looking at my PowerPoint? Yes?
Yes.
Nice. What did I put here? Oh yeah, their checklist is my favorite. The process lengthening, many benefits. Yes, many benefits, because all of you hire me because you want to be Cal OSHA compliant. You get on board with this, you will be Cal OSHA compliant. They'll clap at you, give you your status, your seal of approval. It'll be awesome. So look into it and call me or email me if you have questions. Back injury prevention. So this one, oh goodness gracious, with this one, doesn't it seem like the issue that continues to nag us, continues to be there, and we can't get it off our OSHA logs or our workers' compensation documents? So back injury is very prevalent, and it is estimated that 1 in every 4 adults will suffer back pain in their lifetime. So it's very, very prevalent. Back pain comes as a result I am not a health professional, right? But remember, your activities at work and your activities outside of work will contribute to the health of your back. Now, who is the utmost authority on health of your back and back injury prevention? Ta-da! Dr. Stuart McGill. He's retired, and right now he does a lot of consulting for MMA fighters. And the stuff he discusses with them is beyond technical and awesome. How to move their spine, how to improve movement. He's all about movement, right? So what I see out there, and this is something that is very important for you guys to make notes on. Most workplaces have a back injury prevention policy. Wouldn't you agree? Most. As a matter of fact, your insurance company will not give you coverage unless you have a policy in place, right? So although there is no requirement or standard by OSHA that says back injury prevention, Title 8, blah, blah, blah. Of course, there's some on RMI, it's repetitive motion injury for the hospitality industry, and there is some for the hospital, acute care, because a lot of the healthcare workers were getting injured when lifting, right? In skilled nurse facilities, etc. So we do have those two standards. What I'm asking is for the rest of you, and even for those of you with if you're covered under the healthcare worker, acute care requirements for back injury prevention, and also those of you in the hospitality business, I am asking you to incorporate the newest and latest into your policy. So some of the things that are key that I'm not seeing incorporated, maybe this one, yes, keep everything as close to your body as possible. So anytime you're lifting, make sure you keep it close to your body, right? The farther it is, the more problems it will cause, the more injury to your back. The second one is one that I continue to fight over and over with every single one of the sites I visit: avoiding full bending of the lower back. So if you stand up right now and you try to reach your toes without bending your knees, that's what I'm talking about, okay? So full bending of the back occurs every day when you wake up, when you get up and you make your bed. You see how you make your bed and you're doing this. Now, mind you, after a good night's sleep, and Dr. Stuart McGill talks about so many things. I love his book, and I have done a lot of I've highlighted his book, but he talks about how the pump mechanism, and when we talk about the pump mechanism, is because between your vertebrae, you have discs that need to be hydrated, and they need nutrients, and they need oxygen to function well and to keep your spine healthy. At nighttime, when you have no gravity, as when you stand, you have gravity on those discs, but as you lay down, that pump mechanism repairs those discs, right? And they're getting nice and plumpy with all the water, the nutrients, the oxygen. And so when you wake up in the morning, you're slightly taller. You are slightly taller. And by being slightly taller, I mean all of those discs have that water balloon effect, because at nighttime, of course, that's if you got a good night of rest, the pump mechanism actually allow for those discs to get the nutrients, the oxygen, etc. So they're slightly more plump than during the day or at the end of the day. So the worst thing you could do is get up and make your bed. Because what are you going to do? You're going to start fully bending your spine and causing that disc or those discs at the very, very low portion of your back to be pinched when they are at their most hydrated. You know what I mean? But a lot of this information is not trickling down to how can we improve the health of the back of our workers? Because those are activities and things that are being done outside of the workplace. So by doing a lot of the awareness, people will start changing some of these habits and will have better back hygiene or spine hygiene. How do you tie your shoes? Did you just bend over and tie them, doing a full bend of your spine, full flexion of the spine? So all of those back, full bending of the spine repetitions throughout the day, outside of work, at work, and when you exercise, will contribute to those tears, micro tears of the discs at the levels where this disc is less hydrated. And you're thinking, how can my disc be hydrated and then some of them not hydrated? I really, truly encourage you to read more about the research lately, because he talks about when the spine is healthy, the movement of the vertebrae, it's really there and allows for that pump mechanism to work as you're awake or asleep. But once you have some of that lesions in your spine, and lesions can occur for many reasons, but imagine yourself, and this has happened to all of us. Imagine that you're walking with a friend, you're going to lunch, and then you're going to step off. I mean, you were not expecting that there's an end of a step or a curve because you are distracted. And this has happened to all of us. And so you step forward thinking that it is all even, and there's a curve actually. And as you step forward, you fall, you kind of fall, and you don't fall on your knees or you don't hurt yourself, but you do feel that jarring movement to your spine. Okay, so without you knowing, you might suffer a spine lesion where the actual vertebrae is out of place, and now you have issues with your disc because now that portion or section of your spine will not have the natural movement and will not allow for the pump mechanism to work correctly. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this, and I wish you could incorporate some of this information, simple, not too technical, but for workers to know, to improve their spine hygiene while at home, right? So such as instead of full bending to make your bed, right, the moment you wake up and get up, wait at least an hour or two. I believe Dr. Stuart McGill says 2 hours, but if you can wait, because at the moment you get up, remember, that's when the discs of your spine are at the most hydrated. So if you could wait at least an hour, so have your breakfast, do everything you're going to do, and then just make some time right before you're going out the door to go back up and make your bed, right? Hopefully this will not encourage to leave your bedroom a mess, but it's all part of spine hygiene. Walks, when you walk, so important to walk the right way and activate those muscles with your arms as you walk. So I talk about warm-ups with my workers, and I talk about walking as the most important warm-up, even more important than stretching, because I just took a picture of a stretching program where I see the workers at the construction site I just visited last week. And in their stretching, they're bending full flexion of the spine. And I'm thinking, okay, so why is their stretching program including an exercise that will actually contribute to more tears and more damage of the back instead of, right? Now, once again, there's a lot of information out there that promotes these types of stretches. So we have to consider the difference between what those stretches or programs are made for versus we're dealing with industrial athletes, people that lift heavy, and we got to keep them healthy. Their back needs to be healthy so that they can stay working for us with a healthy back. So all of these things will decrease the amount of back injury and that you have at work. So the amount of back strains and sprains, the amount of repetitive motion injuries, because you see them also for the mid back, the neck, the low back. So as I tell you this, I want you to take a look at the rest of the things I wrote on the screen. I wrote here, avoid full bending of the lower back. So review your stretching program, please, and keep your spine healthy. There are some exercises that Dr. Stuart McGill promotes. Mind you, these are hard to do out in the field when the ground is gravelly or dirt. But for those of you with a warehouse where you are doing exercises to improve the health of the back of your workers, I strongly recommend them. So I'm going to put a picture of those from the book I have from Stuart McGill, and I'll show you what exercises are those, and you might want to start doing them. Let me see. Where am I? Chaka choo. Okay, anyways. All awake? All awake. Musculoskeletal disease and repetitive motion injuries go hand in hand with what employees do outside of work. So once again, bringing this awareness to your training programs is huge. Bringing the actual discussion as to how your spine works, the biomechanics of it, in a simple way with a video where you can show the natural curves of the spine so that workers open their eyes to, oh, I forgot what my spine looks like inside. Oh, it actually has natural curves. The neck is forward, and the mid back is backward, and then the low back is forward, and then the tailbone is a little bit outwardly. Oh, and I need to keep it that way when I lift. So put that into your policy, put that into your training, and constantly talk about it, constantly remind them. So for one of my companies, we have added quarterly back injury prevention training where we repeat these things over and over, because what we want to do is so repetitive that workers keep it top of mind. And when they're out there in the field, they avoid full bending as much as possible. And when they actually have to lift something, they use their muscles of the legs, they keep it really close to their body. And when they take breaks and when they do stretching, they do something like what I'm going to show you. And also, as you update your policy, briefly discuss some of the things that have been shown historically to increase the possibility of injury to the back. And one of those is if you're into CrossFit. All of you CrossFit lovers are going to hate me, but the back injuries in this type of sport are horrific. So this is already out there in the papers. You can Google it or take a look and see what Dr. Stuart McGill has to say. There's a lot of good videos out there where he goes into some of the issues with the heavy lifting that they do as they move and all the jarring that can occur to the spine because of the things that we just described, okay? And then the last thing on this slide, which is amazing, sit-ups. Raise your hand if you do sit-ups to have a six-pack every time you go to the gym. Any of you? Sit-ups. You love them? You hate them? Okay, no one's raising their hands, so I'm going to assume that all of us love to stay at home and not exercise. Guys, sit-ups. Who has done a sit-up in their lifetime? Okay, so weekend sit-ups. I only have a one. I love this, a one pack. Yeah, I know, right? So don't worry and do not dismay. I am hereby telling you, discard them. Do not ever do a sit-up again in your life. You're like, what? No sit-ups for me. Thank you very much. You're like, oh, thank you. You don't like them, me neither. So sit-ups. And this I bring into my policy and I ask people to stop doing them. Now, you can't control what people do outside of work. But when you actually talk to them about this, standing me ups only, yeah, I gotta ask that you show me how to do those. But here it is, you guys, per NIOSH, and I'll read that to you. Sit-ups, both straight leg and bent knee, are characterized by higher psoas activation. What is that? With consequent high-low back compressive loads that exceed the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health guidelines. So every single one of those sit-ups causes damage, and it's tearing your discs that is cumulative. So at some point, if you add all of the sit-ups you've been doing up until now, and then for some reason you fell off the curb because you weren't paying attention, and then for some reason you go and carry something heavy inappropriately by not keeping it close to your body or doing it while torquing, boom, there you go. All those micro tears that have occurred over this long period of time or over the years are now causing you to have a disc bulge, a disc herniation, and there's a ton of different disc conditions that Dr. Stuart McGill talks about, and they're different. They are very different. Nevertheless, no wonder why people start having sciatic pain, etc. So including this as part of your back injury prevention becomes super important. And throughout 2023, I did not see a lot of changes in a lot of the policies that I saw out there. For stretching, please eliminate those with full bending stretches. So take them out of your stretching program today. Include those cool things and exercises that will improve the health of your back. Right here, I took pictures of my book. One of them is the bird dog. So the beginner's bird dog is at top. Intermediate is right there below. That strengthens your core. And yes, if done appropriately, that will help shape those six packs that you so much adore. Same thing with a cat camel. So for these three exercises, which are the top most recommended by Dr. Stuart McGill for the health of your back and for improving core strength, they're hard to do out in the field. So you have to come up with a modified version to do on the wall. It is possible. So the cat camel, I do it with your hands on the wall. Mind you, it's not a stretch exercise, it's a movement exercise. So he doesn't want you to push at the end of the motion, but just rather do the cat camel in a fluid motion. And you can feel as the motion is done, how you tighten your abs and you also improve them. What are you doing here? You're actually opening and closing, you're improving that pump mechanism. And so the side bridge and the bird dog are also exercises designed to improve core strength and prevent back injury. All right. Don't you love this? I love this. So that's my 2 good cents for what has to do with back injury prevention. And then COVID-19 and flu season. So 2-part equation here. Either you are in a regular type of business like everyone else, or you're in healthcare, right? And when I say healthcare, please include skilled nurse facilities, emergency responders, homeless shelters, all of those high-risk settings that you guys are familiar with. Those settings need to look into the ATD, which is aerosol transmissible disease program. You have to have an exposure control program because you are at a heightened possibility of acquiring any of these diseases. So there's a list of vaccines that are mandated. If the person does not want to have them, you have to have a declination form. Now, it's different when you are outside of healthcare and all of the other ones that I mentioned, right? Or high-risk settings. Then you have to have the COVID-19 policy. And of course, you all know that the standard was modified not to require a full-blown program, which, by the way, was a pain in the butt in the beginning because it was so lengthy and so comprehensive. And now they just allow you to have, to include it in your IIPP. But if you have been with me for long enough, you know that I want you to separate these policies from your IIPP. Your IIPP should be led as a simple few-page document, and you should separate all of these policies that either follow or comply with regulations separately. In case you're asked to provide this, you don't have to provide your entire IIPP, but you have everything nicely organized. So this thing is going to be in place until February 3rd. As you know, I have the flu right now. I'm recovering, but here are some of the things that OSHA is recommending. And by the way, with the flu, that's what I mean. With the flu, they're recommending that you have a policy. And so some of you call it contagious disease prevention policy, or, you have different names for it. And that's okay, as long as you do the following. And OSHA directs you to the CDC page, where you have, first thing in the tips is promoting the flu vaccine in the workplace. Number 2, remind sick employees to stay home when sick and prepare for a flu pandemic. So it sounds a lot like COVID because, you're supposed to promote the COVID vaccine and you're also supposed to screen people. So now the terms change a little bit just because with COVID, we do have a standard, right? You're supposed to have people screen themselves every day and not show up to work if they have any symptoms. Oh, thank you. You're awesome. Thank you for sending some of the app workout. And if you can, by the way, the CDC and IOSH has a lot of information on stretching programs. And if you're going to use any of their videos, like the ones you're sending right now, just remember, if any of those exercises include any of that full bending stretch, eliminate that one from your program. All right. Okay. So let me see if I have the actual, I did not do this. Oh yeah, I gave you guys the link. And then I wanted to share it. 10 tips. Number 1, encourage the seasonal flu vaccine. Number 2, host a flu vaccine clinic at your workplace. So think about that one. From now until February, develop and review sick leave policies to encourage sick workers to stay at home so that they don't have any fear of reprisals. And then if you are sick, stay home until you're fever-free, right? And that's what I was telling you guys. I had fever yesterday. So I should wait a period of 24 hours to go back and be with other people in a work environment. Right now I'm alone, so I'm okay, right? And I feel better. So my symptoms are improving, but you cannot go back to work unless you don't have any more fever without the use of fever reducers, right? And also that your symptoms are improving, right? Also, this policy talks about sick employees should be asked to go home. So if you see someone like me right now, hacking, with a Kleenex, they're sitting in front of the computer and you're coming in and there's a meeting and he or she are sitting there with their Kleenex, just like me right now. You have to ask them to go home, Next, develop other flexible policies to allow workers to telework or create you have to create other leave policies to allow workers to stay home to care for sick family members if they need to. This is another thing that I like. This other tip, number 7, instruct employees who are well, but who have a sick family member at home with the flu, that they can go to work as usual. This is interesting. So with the flu, the CDC is saying, hey, even if you have someone with influenza at home, you can still come to work. All I ask you is monitor yourself. If you're starting to feel sick or the moment you feel any symptoms, you go home. Because the main thing here is you're caring for that. You're doing that balance act of not sending everyone home and then who works, right? And also you're playing that balance act where you want to make sure that you don't have people at work that are spreading these germs. And then you end up with, in the case of COVID, with an actual outbreak. Encourage respiratory etiquette, which respiratory etiquette, that's an actual CDC. There's an actual CDC handout that I like and I would print and I would give to all of my employees now that we are in flu season from December to February, where you tell them, I need you in all of your areas to have a little section with tissues, hand sanitizer, and a waste basket. Those 3 things allow people to easily, if they sneeze, to practice good respiratory etiquette, which means, if you sneeze or cough, you do it into your elbow or into the actual tissue. But then people many times will grab a tissue and do what I'm doing right now, which is you blow or you use it and you keep it. And that's so bad because it's going to spread germs anywhere you put it. And now it's in your hands too. So you want to have that waste basket as part of the requirement of this cough etiquette, respiratory etiquette. You have to have a waste basket so that they throw it out and they get a new one, right? So that's super important. Number 10, provide resources and education about employees who may be at high risk for serious flu complications, such as pregnant women, chronic medical conditions such as asthma, heart disease, diabetes, and flu vaccination is especially important for people at high risk for flu complications. So all of this is awareness, helping them to understand. Okay, awesome. With do I have it here? The OSHA, no. I wanted to just, last but not least, share with you the table for COVID, but I've shared it before. That's the one that, that's the one for COVID that tells you, it's a simple one for quarantine and isolation for those of you outside of the aerosol transmissible disease standard. It basically talks about if you are positive with COVID, make sure that you stay home for 5 days and then test again, right? And then for 10 days, you get to wear the mask. Now, there are specifics on the 10-day using of a mask. So that's why you will still see mask wearing at the work sites. That doesn't mean you cannot implement a more stringent policy. And I would highly recommend it because we're talking about keeping you guys with enough people at work. So please make sure that if you work in the service industry where you are in constant exposure to the public, and you, of course, high-risk settings do have a universal masking requirement. So you cannot go to the, you cannot do certain healthcare and in that type of industry, like high-risk settings, you have to be masked. Your customers may not, but hey, is it something that you could implement? Yes, absolutely. So you could make it your own policy for customers, clients, patients to come into your clinics and also be wearing a mask to prevent the spread of COVID and flu. So mind you, the main thing that I wanted to stress is that you do have the power to implement your own policies. Okay, so training for 2024. This is quite easy. It's a 2-part issue. Do you do all hands meetings or do you just train individually? So that's kind of like what I always ask. So do you do trainings for everyone? Or, by the way, are you guys looking at my PowerPoint?
Yes, we see list per
Per
department.
department. Okay. So the first thing I want you to do is take a look at the OSHA safety and health training and instruction requirements. And for that one, all you need to do is go to the OSHA website, and it's not very user-friendly, but it's very lengthy, and it goes in alphabetical order, but it basically says who has the requirement, if it's initial or annually. So it's a very good document. With this, you can get to make a list of training topics. So a lot of you have group trainings, and a lot of you have individual trainings. Here is my 2 cents in what I have learned in 2023. Well, actually, this one, throughout the many years I've been doing safety, do your actual all meeting, all in group training meetings, but also do individual. Why? Because you want to make sure that you are training people individually in the specifics and the tasks and the hazards that are very particular to the things that they're going to do. So I highly encourage, with that tool that I just gave you, the actual link to the OSHA, I encourage you to make a list of those safety trainings that apply to your workers. For example, for that same company, construction company, was making a list of the things, and we have this for many years, but we review it here and there. And then you have the installers, the field workers, the warehouse workers, the office workers, etc. And their list is different, right? And so for one person, you have all of these types of trainings that are required for him or her to receive. And so out of this, you develop the safety training for a new worker. It could be included in your new worker orientation, right? But you have to do hands-on specific training for each worker. Separately from that, you could also have group trainings, and you can do them quarterly, monthly, and weekly. I encourage you to do both: individual training, hands-on in their own language and specific to the job, and do all hand meetings quarterly, monthly, or weekly, whatever it is adequate for your type of industry. If you're in pipeline, for example, oil distribution, weekly would not be, maybe not even enough. It should be daily. But for those of you that have something going on already quarterly, it's just very important that individually you train for the job, hands-on, and in their language. So I'm going to send you guys this presentation, and you're going to see a couple of examples on how some people are doing it, right? They train monthly, and this company trains monthly, and they do a little bit of their all hands meeting on these topics, but then they do a separate list of new worker orientation training specific to the job. So monthly, all team meetings, and then in person separately. And another one is the quarterly with the many topics, so that let's say the warehouse manager knows which slip or which program he needs to pull out to train. For example, in January through March, he has to train on their IIPP, knowing what it says, recognition, slip, trip, and fall, ergonomics, safe lifting. So he's going to pick one of those topics and complete the training January through March. So however you do it, this is a all team meeting training, and then separately do the individual training included in your new worker orientation or whenever you're assigning them to a different task. That would be what you do for 2024. That would be the best. And that's it, you guys. So we fulfilled our objectives. We discussed several of these things that were important. And I will see you next month. We are not going to do it the first Friday of January. We're going to do it the second Friday to give you a chance to come back from your vacations. Thank you, everyone. You're awesome. Merry Christmas to everyone. And thank you. I'll see you in a month. Remember, second Friday for January.
Thank you, Alba. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. See you in
Happy
January.
holidays.